guys. I think I'm recording, so I'm just kind of gonna go ahead and I'll see afterwards. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Stacy Kenny. I'm new to the group, obviously. I got a little bit behind on this book, um, but it's okay, right? We just pick it up and read it at your own pace. I think that's one of the things that I've learned the most in this whole isolation lockdown is that when your energy isn't focused on something, it's really hard to get into it, right? So I've just kind of allowed myself to follow where my energy feels fit. And also, I know when I get into the energy to read, I can crush a book. So I just kind of like picked it up when I felt ready, and then off I went to the races. And it's interesting with Joe Dispenza because I actually started with Becoming Supernatural, and I'm not done that yet, but that's where I started. So I've kind of put a bit of a pause in that so that I can start with this book and be part of this book club of beautiful people. So I was talking to Barb because some of you might not follow me might not be on 18 with me or like on my personal page, but I just kind of wanted to share an experience, and Barb had asked me to share as well. This past week, it's interesting also during quarantine to notice a lot about yourself. Like some days you have very high productive days and you get a ton of shit done, and then there's other days where you just feel like poo. Like you just feel like shit, like you're grumpy or you're irritated or really, really tired and lethargic. And I think that's part of this process is give yourself grace to kind of feel a bunch of different things without having to, berate yourself about it. So it's like, feel your feeling, name it, right? I'm feeling irritated today, and then just kind of give it some space, laugh about it a little. And with reading this book, one of the things that really kind of was clear to me was the job that I have. I work with children, quite a few preschoolers, and not even just the kids, but even just within the center. It can be a very highly stressful job. So I've been off for so long that it's like my body, my cells are starting to get used to not being in a high stressful state. And I do, pride myself of having worked really, really hard over my life to build up tools and practices for myself to be able to work through stresses and anxieties as they come up so that I don't get to a place of overwhelm. But I also know that I'm a bit of like a recovering overworker. Like I'll work and work and work and work and work, and I sometimes don't realize how much I'm taking on. So I have to constantly check in with myself. I do find having like a personal practice that's like an accountability practice really helps me with that too, just like sitting down and getting grounded. And that ended up coming in beautifully this past week. So I had an experience this week, and I'm not sure exactly what triggered it, or if there was something specifically that triggered it, or I just woke up feeling a certain way. But I woke up with this feeling, this really intense pressure on my chest. Like I just felt really stressed out about something, and I was just thinking, it's like there's nothing that has happened today right now that has caused me to be in this stressful state, other than like uncertainty kind of the future and what's going on, and watching the Prime Minister's address in Canada every day just to see kind of updates and what's up. And so I ended up not being able to shake this feeling, this sense in my chest, and it would be beating. It was almost like I could hear my heart beating. It was so loud, and there was just like an intense pressure. And I was looking at, my income and my finances and how long I would be able to sustain my home and my life if this was to continue for a period of time. And my rental was increasing, and I got the internet back again, and that's like another amount monthly because I want to stay up to date on everything going on. And for a period of time, I got rid of internet to try to save myself some money. So I had to bring that back into my money budget. So I was going through all of that, and then I was like, oh my god, like how much longer can everybody do this? Like there's no way that I'm the only one in this position. There's so many people that live paycheck to paycheck. So although we're getting assistance, if you are lucky enough to get assistance, it might not be what you've been budgeting if you're a paycheck to paycheck person. So I got into that sort of trip, and then I had gotten a little bit stressed out because my habits over the first 2-3 weeks of COVID lockdown were probably not the healthiest of habits, and I could actually feel my body becoming very toxic. I could feel the inflammation in my body. I'd weighed in and I was up like a few pounds, and I remember I was like, drinking a lot of wine. My alcohol intake went through the roof, and just feeling like one night I went to bed and I thought, if this is going to continue for a long time, my behaviors are not sustainable. Like, these are not healthy lifestyle choices. But then I started getting really worked up about my body, that like I was allowing this experience that everybody's going through start to affect my body, and my body's really all I have. It's my temple, and I need to take care of it, because what if I end up in the hospital and oh my God, people can't come visit me? And like, I just got into this really, really anxious space. So I took on my tools. I went for walks, and I went for a walk again if that wasn't enough, and I tried watching a movie to help lift my spirits. I tried doing another activity, but as I said at the beginning, if your energy is not focused on something, it's hard to really kind of take it in. So I tried to read a book, couldn't get into the book. I would try to do this, and I couldn't really get into that activity. So I would make sure that I would like reach out to friends or reach out to people that I knew that I could talk to, not just like anybody willy-nilly. There are certain people that I will reach out to that I can count on maybe one hand, who are people that are very supportive when you're going through that, especially when they know that you have the tools, and that you to try to empower you to keep going in yourself and keep finding and keep searching. And so I was like reaching out throughout the day, and I remember going through my second walk of the day, and that second walk of the day, and I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that. I know a lot of people still aren't even allowed to leave their houses in some countries, so I am grateful for that. So I was out for my second walk, and I got this beautiful realization that one of the things that was causing me to really go into a state of stress was this fear. Ultimately, below my stress and anxieties was this fear of losing my independence. I felt like somebody or something was taking my home from me, because I was wondering, like, how would I pay my rent if this wasn't, something that I could sustain, and I had to move out, and not feeling like I'd be moving out because it's a choice that I'm ready to move on and go somewhere else, that it's something that's being forced upon me. So I was really having a hard time with that. And then this beautiful thing came in, this lesson of maybe is someone trying to take this from me, and once I got to that fear of me losing my place, I thought, okay, if that's what this is really about, I can make some calls. I'll call my landlord, I'll figure it out. Like, we've had conversations about this before, and as I would continue to walk, I started to get more clarity about, if I was to lose my house, would I completely break? Like, is who Stacy is somebody that would break if she doesn't have the four walls that she's around? Are these four walls who I am? And the answer to that for me was no. And then when I came home, I got to my other tool, which is journaling, and I journal quite often. Sometimes it's just a couple lines. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves when we journal, to journal like multiple pages of things, and sometimes that's not all you need to get out. Sometimes you just need to express and write out the smallest of things. So I finally sat down and I wrote down, and I thought, is independence just having your own home? Because I've met people who own their own home or have, all these beautiful things, but don't really know how to navigate their own emotions, don't really know how to stand their ground or set boundaries, or how to be confident in themselves. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's not what maybe that's not what independence is. So I got into that. What does independence mean to me? And a lot of that for me was, relying on myself and being confident in myself, and loving myself enough to give myself these gifts as through continual learning and experiencing in life, and growing in myself and my spirituality to me just being what feels true to me, and following that. So it might not be true to you, but it might be true to me, and then I'd have to go my own direction in that, and that's okay. Like, knowing that you have to sometimes go in a different direction than somebody else. But when I got through that, finally, I sat down again. I started reading the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and was reaffirmed about Dr. Joe's big threes. And the big three fears that usually are present or come in when you're in a state of stress. So the big threes are, fearful, like something's going on in your environment, fearful about your body, and fearful about time. So all in that whole moment, I experienced fear about my environment, was the big one that really kind of set me off. I was a walking billboard of these 3 fears. So the fear of the environment was the first one. So it was like feeling like I was going to lose my house, feeling like someone was taking it from me. Like, where do I go if I don't have this? Like, then what is my option? This is my safe place. Like, I wanted to be here. I wanted to be in my temple. And then the second one, the body, I had gone into the state of like, well, I've already, like, my weight is going up. I don't want that. I need to take care of my body. Like, I'm not coming out of this, unhealthy. I can't sustain this behavior. Like, what's going on? I was treating my body like a garbage can for the first little bit. And my energy was really low, and I started to become very fatigued, and I thought, I need to take care of my health because I don't want to get sick and I don't want this to come at me. So started getting into a really, in a bit of an overdrive about taking care of my body. Just, it's okay to find a good alignment, balanced place of just being healthy, taking care of your body, being good about it, being mindful of what you're eating and taking in, and if you are having something, have it in moderation, right? But I had gone into this space of like, I at least need to take care of this container. Like, this container is important. And then where does this thing go? Like, where do I stay? And where's my next safe space if something happens to my shelter or something happens to my environment? And my entire environment has actually changed, right? Like, I'm used to being in a really, really busy, loud room with lots of kids going on and some yelling and screaming and fighting and crying. And now it's very, very quiet. I have control over all of that, right? I can listen to the music that I want to listen to now, find it like, throughout the day, which is beautiful. So my environment is very different. And then the third big fear, so you have your environment and you have your body, and then there's time. So in that, I was like, how long can everybody, how long can the collective human last in all of this? How long can everybody do this for? So I was so caught up in the uncertainty of all this and the uncertainty of the future and how long I could sustain this, how far I could go in this. So I wasn't living in any kind of a present moment experience. I was living way far in the future in something that's not even real. So I projected who I was and my consciousness into the future that I could have made into a beautiful thing. Like, oh, I'm going to come out of this and this is going to be, the possibility, this is what's going to happen. And instead I made it this like doomsday, what's going to happen. I'm going to have to go through all these things and big changes that aren't going to be good for me or something. So I created this space. So it was like, I didn't realize that during that stressful state that I was showing all 3 big fears until I finally came out of it, broke it down, and saw that in all of that, all 3 of those fears were present. So to me, it really spoke to the validity of his work, because it was, as soon as you go into a stressful state, you're going to experience one, if not all 3 of these big fears. So I just wanted to kind of write about that, because, and then using your tools that you have, and if you don't have the tools to overcome those feelings, and really I would say like your tool would be something that brings you fulfillment, something that brings fun, or something that brings energy or joy to your life, or going to work on a project that you want to do, or maybe for you it's just putting on a funny movie that will lift your spirits, and hope that does the trick, right? At least doing something that can help pull you out of it. Sometimes I'll even watch a movie that happens to be like a holiday movie, but I don't care, because it's all about lifting my spirit. It's how my spirit feels when I access this specific tool, right? So, and the tools could also be reaching out to certain people who know how to communicate with you during that time, because when you're in that state, somebody using the wrong tone of voice could trigger you further. So you want to make sure that you speak to people who kind of like have a really good understanding about communication and that kind of skill, because compassionate communication is a skill. So, and I would encourage you to, when you're feeling that stress and you're feeling that fear coming up, to utilize the tools to overcome those big 3, because you can, right? You can. And Dr. Joe talks about this when you're rewiring the brain. Every single time you make a choice to go the other direction, you're fogging out that old part of the brain that would always go into survival, always go into stress and fight or flight, right? So every time you make a decision, even if it's to watch a movie that makes you happy, look at pictures that make you happy, listen to music that makes you happy, whatever it is that helps bring you that joy and happiness, the more you do that in those stressful states, the more that those brain connections will fade out to the old you, and you'll walk more into the new future you that you want to be, who can maintain themselves during these states of stress and knows how to navigate their walk through that experience, right? Because you're more than just that. It's just an experience. And I did find when I finally came out of it, I was able to not just get this beautiful lesson of independence. There was so much more clarity. My body felt great. I felt like my energy levels were up. I felt lighter. So I would encourage you, when you're doing that, when you're in that stressful state, if you find yourself in one, keep maybe like a little like a post-it note or something on the fridge or somewhere in the bathroom, that's like, if you're in a state of stress, are you feeling one of these three, or if not all of them? And then what tools are you going to use to combat them, right? Not even so much combat, I'm not totally happy with that, but how to overcome the challenge that you're feeling, because this is just a call for you to kind of elevate yourself to the next level, because you will. And I believe his book has been so beautiful so far, just helping you kind of like understand that, okay, yes, I'm feeling stress, but it takes you in deeper, because you're asking about what are those fears that are causing this stress or anxiety to come up. Yeah. So stay grounded, stay healthy, stay in love, and we'll talk soon. Love you guys. Bye.